All right, and we are live. This is episode 50 of the Patriot Nation podcast. I am Pat Lane, as always, joined by my co-host Ryan Spagnoli. Spags, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I forgot how boring I tweeted out yesterday. I forgot how boring bye weeks are. They're miserable. It's like
It's the
you
worst.
can't find anything to talk about. I know
No.
it's good for the players though. Ultimately, I mean, especially these guys.
Yeah.
They're battling. I mean, they've stayed relatively healthy for the most part of the year, but you know, you got Edelman battling an injury. I'm sure Brady's hurting a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Shaq
you know, but
Mason.
it's good. Yeah, Shaq Mason. You know that
Yeah.
whole old line, really. But it's good. It's good that they get it and we get a little break. Not that there's been any stressful football, but
No.
you know what I'm saying.
No, I know exactly what you
It's
mean.
coming, so we got to gear up.
I know. You know what? I like the bye at the end of the year. You know, some guys have a bye like week 4, week 5, somewhere around there, but week 10 is like the perfect spot. It's right kind of in the middle of the season. It's great, you know.
They've had some week 4 buys, and I think every year they've had that, they've either failed to reach the Super Bowl or I don't think they've won it with a week 4 bye. I was looking at it. I think
last 4 bye 2 years ago when they lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Philly, it was like week 4,
maybe it was like week
somewhere 4 or 6, but it's good. And it's pointless to have a bye week 4, realistically.
Right.
And I think, I mean, it's a stupid, discussion, maybe a little bit off track, but I think teams, the way you finish, should be able to pick their bye week. You know, obviously you don't want to have a bye week, after week 14 or something.
No, but that would be great though.
But right here is perfect spot, right in the middle of the year.
Yeah, I feel like the younger teams too sometimes need the earlier bye week because you can kind of readjust what's going on, whereas the more veteran teams need that break as they get through the season, you know?
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
Well, I would say, listen, I think that it's perfect that today's episode is episode number 50 because in training camp, N'Keal Harry wore number 50, and of course, this is the first week that N'Keal Harry was eligible to play. It was on the active roster leading up into the game. And of course, as we all expected and hoped for, he was a healthy scratch.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know if you listen to talk radio, which I've been kind of staying away from this year, it's just so toxic, especially towards the Patriots. You'd think, win 6 Super Bowls, been to 8 straight AFC Championship games. Like the sky's falling at 8-1. But anyways, I thought it was a little interesting when they talked to Belichick and Brady about receiving and specifically N'Keal Harry. They weren't. He didn't really give him any props, didn't really talk much about him. Belichick just said, he wasn't ready. There's 45 other players that were active, and Brady really didn't mention him. I thought that was a little interesting because it is, kind of – I understand, that you get the bye week so you can look at it both ways, right? Like, hey, get him in tonight, get him a few reps. They get the bye week. Or, hey, here's what it's like to be active. Here's what it's like to go through the process of an NFL football game, prime time. Use this as an experience. Come travel with the team, and then we'll activate you after. But all signs last week leading up to the game, you thought he'd be healthy, active. I didn't think he'd play much. Maybe anywhere between 10 to 20 snaps, but for him to be inactive, it was pretty questionable.
It was surprising, and you wonder too, like, who do they have active that that they didn't normally have active? Now Byron Cowart was active; he hasn't really been active all year, so I wonder if if they were worried about the run, about that run offense of Baltimore, and they thought it was more important to have more D linemen than they did wide receivers. Of course, that didn't really work out too well for them. But it's one of those things where you look at it and just kind of say, like, what the heck were they thinking? And I will say that Belichick line might be one of my favorite lines of all time. He's walking off and they're like, why wasn't Harry active? And he's like, well, there were 46 other guys active. That's why he was active. And I was just like, that's amazing. Just ultimate Belichick right there.
The other thing too, they went no huddle like almost the entire second half. And the first drive leading up to the Edelman fumble, all no huddle. And then I believe their next 2 drives, looking at the game film today, they were strictly no huddle for I would say I think they might have had 3 or 4 drives the whole third quarter, and they were no huddle. So obviously when you do that, you're limiting the personnel groupings you can do. I don't know if that was part of their game plan or maybe just because, they spotted them 17 early. You got to get quick points on the board to get back in the game. But I mean, when they were doing that, it was a 1 and 2 possession game. It's kind of unlike the Patriots to go no huddle like that. So that's what I thought was interesting. Obviously, like I said, you're limited as a personnel grouping when you go no huddle.
Well, I do think too. I mean, you heard Marlon Humphrey after the game say, like, they really didn't have an answer for it. The Patriots got into no huddle and they were struggling to keep up with it. And so I think it was something that the Patriots recognized. And although they don't love to do no huddle all the time, but they're good at it. They practice it a lot. And again, like, their no huddle is different. Like, it's up tempo, but let's get to the line. Let's kind of survey what's going on. We'll kind of look around and we'll take our time. And about 20 seconds in, we'll snap the ball, as opposed to, run right up to the line and snap it again. It is a no huddle, but it's kind of more like take your time. But what it does is it doesn't really allow for the Ravens, for the defense to substitute out, and so you're running these packages out there and they have one set package on the field, and that package really isn't equipped to stop what the Patriots are doing. And so I think that, that's one of those things for me where you look at it and just say, man, like, they made an adjustment, I think, to what they saw, because you got to remember too that when you make a substitution on offense, you have to give the defense the time to make a substitution as well. So it's not like you can snap it while they're in the middle of a substitution. If you bring someone else in, you have to let them be able to bring someone else in as well. So you're not even trying to you're not gaining an advantage by pulling people in and out. So the Patriots can stick with one personnel grouping and run a million different plays, because that's what they do with everyone. Everyone has to know every position.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of Tom Curran wrote an article today about the Patriots maybe not showing their full bag of tricks, or their full playbook, I guess. And I still don't think they've definitely haven't showed us the full playbook yet. No. I mean, obviously they look at the schedule. They saw the first 8 games like we did. We're going to win every game as long as we show up, right? And then you go to a Baltimore, and maybe you try to dig into the bag of tricks a little bit, but when you go down 17 early, I mean, how many times you can? I mean, granted, they had the chance to get right back in that game. Obviously, started the third quarter, but when you go down 17 early, it's almost like, hey, they got us here. I don't want to show anything in terms of what may come back to help us in January, right? I mean, and that could be something why they're going no huddle so much, right? Stick to a personnel grouping. Don't show them much. Let's just try to get points here with what we got. And ultimately, the game was kind of out of reach before the end of the third. Really, the stupid score was a backbreaker. But.
And so Carmina asked on the chat, was that part of Belichick's game within the game, right? Making the Ravens prep, for that particular thing. And I think what it does is when you put something like that on film, where you can run the same, those same plays with the same personnel grouping, and you can run an up tempo type offense, that puts it on film for everyone else to see. So everyone else sees that you can kind of do everything you want with the same personnel groupings, and you don't necessarily have to switch guys in and out. And so that's another thing that they have to prepare for. So although it didn't necessarily help them, this Sunday, it might come back and help them later, because now you have to plan for so much more as a defensive coordinator. And so I think that, coming down the road, that could be something that benefits the Patriots, because as a defense, you just have to study so much more and be prepared for so much more.
Yeah, and I don't know if you said this to me off air or maybe a couple shows ago, but how about that second round pick for Mohamed Sanu? Doesn't look too bad now, does it?
It's okay.
Second time in his career he's had double-digit catches. Yeah. The last time he had that was, I tweeted out the other day, I believe in 2014 versus Carolina. It was an overtime game, and I think 5 of his catches came in fourth quarter or in overtime.
Yeah.
So this guy, I mean, talk about stepping right in. I wrote the keys to the game, and for once I went 3 for 3. Number one was Mohamed Sanu's coming out party. I thought that was going to be a good game. I think he was Marlon Humphrey was on him for the most part. I think a little bit with Edelman too, but whoever was guarding him, he cooked him. I mean, he went 10 for what was it, 1 something and a touchdown, or 10 for 89 and a touchdown.
Yeah, I think it was 89.
He was all over the field. Brady went to him in key spots. And I think that's a guy that is going to help them down the stretch. And if you look at it and you look at him play, from the naked eye, it's like, oh, is that it looks like Josh Gordon, like 2014, 2015, even if he was playing then, but who knows? But they got a similar skill set, similar body. And I think they looked at that trade and said, hey, this is Josh Gordon, just with a step faster and can do a little bit more than what Gordon was doing at the time. I mean, he stepped in, and I think that the role that we saw Sanu play Sunday night was something they were hoping to get out of Gordon, but
Yeah.
obviously they just couldn't get it, and they didn't really miss a beat. Obviously, people get mad at the Gordon cut, and we've talked about it for weeks now, but it sucked to see him go, but they didn't miss a beat with Sanu.
No.
He's a legit receiver, and he's going to help them. He fits our scheme perfectly.
Right. I think the big thing with Sanu is that he's reliable, right? And that's what they paid for, the reliability. And also he signed for next year on fairly short money. And so I think that's those two things right there kind of combined to say, okay, let's give up a second round pick. We got to secure, we got to improve our receiving core and go from there. So, so we'll see. But I don't know if he's spending the bye week with him or not, Carmina, but he might be. You never know. You never know. So, all right. So let's get in. We want to get into our midseason awards. So we are about halfway through. Obviously, they played 9 games, 9 out of 16, but close enough. So we're going to go for some midseason awards. So we're going to start with the. Do you want to start? Let's start with MVP. Why not? Let's start with MVP. And I'm going to go here. I'm going to go Jamie Collins here at MVP. The guy's done everything. He's done everything they've asked him for. He has gone above and beyond and been, I think, dominant, one of the most dominant linebackers in the NFL for a time. And I know he's maybe dropped off a little bit. He didn't have such a good week against Baltimore, but he's just had some of those flash plays where you're like, whoa, like he's made some really great athletic plays. He's given them a lot of, a big boost in the linebacking core. And I think for me, it's this defense has been the dominant part of the team. Now, obviously, they weren't on Sunday, but I think they will continue to be as we move forward. And so, for me, Jamie Collins is my midseason MVP.
See, I can't disagree with that because I'm also going to go on the defensive side of the ball, and it's tough to pick. And just because you picked Collins, we talked about it before the show. I got to go Stephon Gilmore, just because his numbers are ridiculous. He's allowed 25 receptions in 9 games. He's allowing 5.5 yards per target. He's got 9 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, 0 touchdowns allowed. Guy's given up 295 yards in 9 games, like I said. As locked down as they come, really, like, if you look at it, I think it's like 36. I'm looking at PFF right now. Yeah, around 37 yards per game, and he's facing number 1 receivers all the time. Right? He's just as locked down as they come. Physical, sticky, he's on you at all times. I don't know where this secondary is very good. I mean, they got a lot of JC Jackson's numbers are ridiculous. Jonathan Jones has done unbelievable in the slot. Jason McCourty, who had a tough night the other night, I think. He's been great. So it's hard to say, this secondary wouldn't be great without him because they have a lot of talent, but I mean, he's the ringleader out there for that secondary, him and McCourty, and you don't have to worry about his side of the field when he's on you.
Right. And that's the big thing with him. I mean, I think that Gilmore kind of slots everyone correctly, right? Because Gilmore's the number 1, and I think they do have a lot of talent, like you said, but do they have another number 1? I don't think so. And so, by him being the number 1, it allows Jackson and McCourty to be that number 2, 3 guy, and Jonathan Jones.
And you get the safety help over top with some of those guys.
Right.
I'm interested to see, not to cut you off with, but I know they had John Jones on him. On Tyreek Hill in the AFC Championship game, they had to lock him down. Him and Crossan with McCourty over the top.
Right.
And Gilmore's on Sammy Watkins, who's probably one of the most overrated receivers in the game. If you look at that matchup, that's going to be shut down.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens when the Chiefs come to town. But let's go with Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to have you start, Spags. Go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to the offense hasn't been what we had expected. It's a lot of changing and moving parts, obviously, with the offensive line being really banged up and, a lot of turnover at the receiver position this year, which we haven't really seen in quite some time. So I got to go with my guy, Tom Brady. I mean, the guy's where would this offense be without him? Who knows? Because he's second in the lead in passing right now, which is crazy. Only behind Phil. I saw that today. With that offensive line, he's taken a lot of hits, a lot of pressures. He's been an absolute wizard in the pocket. If you watch his film, he's moving so well. He's avoiding the rush, moving up, moving outside the pocket, making tough throws. I think he's catching a lot of heat when, like I said, he's having a lot of turnover at receiver. The only one he's really got familiarity with from the receiver position is Julian Edelman and Philip Dorsett. Right. And then obviously James White, contributes out of the backfield. He's been great. I would hope to see if, when Isaiah Wayne comes back, hopefully after the bye, I'm assuming his play will rise even more. And if you saw Brady with Wynn in the lineup the first 2 weeks, he was pretty good. People are saying MVP for him. So
right.
A lot of his play is fallen off, as I guess you could say, as the Fox Sports and the Felger and Mazes would say, since they haven't had a left tackle. So Tom Brady's my offensive player of the year up to this point. I don't think it's much question.
I like it. Tough to argue with, but I'm going to argue with it anyways. I'm going to go with Julian Edelman. And I know we had a huge fumble, obviously, last week that really led to the end of that game, but finished with 10 catches for 89 yards in that game too. He was really, for a time, the only guy that could get open, the only guy that could really make a play, in my opinion. And so, you look at his stats already this year, he's averaging 7 catches a game, 63 catches for 663 yards. So you're looking at, 112 catches for like 1,200 yards or 1,100 yards.
Might be a career high, I believe. I think he's only been over 1,000.
He went over 1,000 in 2016, and he went over 1,000 in 2013 as well. But anything 1106 was the total in 2016. As a matter of fact, 105 is his top number of catches in 2013 too. So 112. I mean, he's on pace for a career high in both receptions and receiving yards. And again, we talked about kind of people in and out and stuff, but he's been that consistent guy for Brady since the beginning, where you look at it and say, okay, we know we have Jules every week. We don't know who else is going to be there, but he knows that he can rely on Jules and trust him to get to the right spot and do what he needs to do. And so, he's been doing that. And again, he's been doing the little things too, making blocks. He's a great blocker too. So he gets my offensive player of the year at the midway point so far.
Yeah, not much to argue with there. I mean, like I said, the only two consistent guys right now are Brady and Edelman, but
that's it.
Edelman struggled with a couple drops this year.
He did, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really help my argument.
Like I said, he's the safety blanket. If without him, that receiving corps would be brutal. So I'll let you go for defensive player of the year.
All right, defensive player of the year. I'm going to go off the board here. I know MVP. I went Jamie Collins. You went Stephon Gilmore. And defensive player of the year, I'm picking neither of those guys. I'm going with Donta Hightower. And for me, the thing with Hightower is that, and it's similar to what we were talking about with Gilmore, where everything's just kind of slotted in correctly, right? If Hightower is not playing, someone else has to play his spot. And then if someone else is playing his spot, then someone else is playing out of position somewhere else. So, it kind of just lets everyone kind of be who they are and do what they do. Van Noy is a great example. Van Noy, when he plays in Hightower's spot, doesn't look very good. But when he plays his own spot, he looks really good. And so it's just like he needs to be that guy on the field. And they have a great linebacking core. It's better than it's ever been, in my opinion. I mean, leader on him on the sideline screaming at the defense, at the Ravens game is just awesome.
That into my veins.
Oh man, that's just so dope. And so, it's one of those things where you just, he seems to be the guy that comes up and makes a lot of plays. And again, maybe hasn't had some of the flashy plays, but for me, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my MVP was Stephon Gilmore, so he'd be my defensive player of the year. But I guess 1A, 1B, Jamie Collins, I mean, what he's done is come over here and just been absolutely dominant. His last, 2 games have been but I mean, like they've still been very, very good. I thought he had a tough game the other night, but I just think that was tough for everybody, the scheme, and they just couldn't get it figured out. But Collins, Gilmore, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah. No, Jeff in the chat says Devin McCourty. And I think actually it's a pretty good one. I almost picked him, but he didn't have an interception this week. So I figured, what's he really done lately? You know what I mean? So, all right, let's go to rookie of the year. And I'm going to let you start because I like your choice as well.
I mean, obviously they haven't had many rookies play. I think just Winovich and Bailey. We'd like to have seen Jawan Williams, but loaded secondary. N'Keal Harry's been hurt. I'm going to go Jake Bailey just because Ryan Allen, what he did in that Super Bowl was the best punting, thing. I can't look for the word right now, but you know what I'm saying? Performance, yes, I've ever seen. And they went out and drafted a punter. I know his contract was up at the end of the year and all that. They went out and drafted a punter in the 5th round and cut arguably the best punter in the league. I know he's a free agent still, but come on, it's Ryan Allen.
He got picked up. Unbelievable. Got picked up this week.
Oh, did he really? I didn't see that.
He did. He got picked up by I don't even remember who it is, but it was someone that who the hell was it? Go ahead, keep going. It was it's the Falcons. The Falcons have cut like He's their 6th punter of the year. 6.
Jeez.
He's their 6th punter of the year.
Jake Bailey has been awesome. I know they haven't really got into a field position battle, and he hasn't punted in the big games that Allen has. I know his holding's been off a little bit, and I think that's contributed a little bit to the kicking. And Nugent Nugent wasn't good, but I think some of those kicks were a little bit on the hold.
Didn't help.
Yeah, definitely didn't help. But he's got a golden leg, and like I said, to cut Ryan Allen and to go with this kid and to step into those shoes and fill him pretty well. I got to go with Jake Bailey.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's funny because back when they drafted Ryan Allen and they cut Zoltan Mesko, and everyone was pissed, including me. I was pissed that they cut Zoltan, and and obviously he was right to go with Ryan Allen. And now this year, everyone says, "What are you kidding? You cut Ryan Allen? Are you kidding me? Like Ryan Allen was so good in the Super Bowl." And again, it looks like he made the right decision. Now, I'm interested to see. You mentioned the holding thing. I'm interested to see how that goes. But I think that his talent at kicking the ball is undeniable. It's been phenomenal. And so, I think that they've definitely made the right call. So as far as rookie of the year, and you mentioned him, Chase Winovich is my pick because for me,
he ran Michael Bennett out of town.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when's the last time we saw a rookie just instantly get in a rotation like this?
Trey Flowers.
Yeah, but Trey Flowers was hurt his rookie year. So no, Trey Flowers is his second year. Yeah, man. Trey Flowers missed his whole.
The Atlanta Super Bowl was second year?
Atlanta was his second year.
Wow,
he was drafted in 2015. No, so that's the thing. So it's like
Wise rookie year. That's right.
Right.
They're both out of Arkansas.
Yeah, and so Wise was kind of like in and out, but like Winovich has been a big part of this offense already as a rookie. It just doesn't happen very often with Belichick coach teams, and so for him to be getting as many looks as he has been shows you a lot about the type of player he is and what they think of him as a player, and especially with how deep their defensive line is. And like you said, Bennett didn't even couldn't even get on the field, and this guy's getting a ton of playing time, and so I think that he's really played well and has a lot of upside to him. So so we'll see where it goes from there.
The Michigan man. And he's been awesome. He's been awesome. Most surprising. Go ahead, Pat.
All right, most surprising to me, I'm going to go off the board a little bit here. I'm going to go with Ted Karras. And so the reason why I'm going to go with Ted Karras, I know their offensive line has really struggled a lot, but man, David Andrews, is the glue that holds everything together in there. And, for him to go down, obviously, with the blood clots in his lungs, scary situation, and, and hopefully, he's okay, which is good. But obviously couldn't play this year. And so, you have a guy, Ted Karras, step in, and he's in a rookie he's on the last year of his deal. And we just didn't know how it was going to look. And his run blocking has been suspect here and there, but I was really, really, really nervous coming into the year. And even after that first game when his snapping, was so slow getting back to Brady, but he's really tightened it. He's really tightened it up a lot. His snapping has been pretty good. And overall, his blocking has been pretty solid. His pass blocking has been very, very good, for the most part. And so, for me, I've been very pleasantly surprised with Ted Karras.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. He's kind of been that unsung hero that no one's really talked about. He's been great, and the snapping's been better, definitely better since week one. Like you said, run blocking, I mean, Andrews was great up front. He could double team a lot of guys. But he's been good. I mean, like I said, it's not an easy job, especially with the relationship Brady has with Andrews. He's came in and done a fine job. For me, I got to go with Jamie Collins. I know that might not be so surprising to people, but if you can remember the first time around, he was okay, right? I mean, Belichick, I don't think they used him in the ways that kind of fit his skill set, and they didn't really use him to the scheme that worked him the best, if that makes sense. But he's come in, played an unbelievable job. One of the most athletic linebackers around. I mean, this guy is chasing down a lot of guys. He's been unbelievable. The pressures, the tackles, forced fumbles. This guy's been all over the place defensively. If you were to tell me this guy was going to have a year like this coming in, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. Well, I thought he might have been a rotational guy. They got him kind of late in the free agency. Kind of a prove it year, and he's going to get paid in the offseason. I don't think it's going to be here, but it's going to be one of those other guys that comes in, just pass guys. They get on that, that prove it deal. They go get paid in the offseason. So he's been awesome and really been leading that him and Hightower, that linebacker core. Right. Obviously too, but
no, and you're right. And you know what? I think he's played so well that he might actually get paid here. And I think the surprising thing about it is that we all knew that. Yeah, me too. And, we all knew the talent that Collins had, right? They drafted him in the second round. We saw it instantly right away. The physical skills were amazing. but he had trouble kind of staying the script and doing things. And so, the first time around and the first time around,
he did do
really
that a little bit
out.
Sunday, but like I said, the running quarterback gets you running around a little bit.
Right. And I think the thing is too, is that when you look at a guy like Collins, people knew he was going to be good, but they didn't think he was going to be this good. And so, all right, let's wrap up the midseason awards. We're going to go with most disappointing. And Spags, I'll let you start out with most disappointing.
Yeah, for me, it's Shaq Mason because that offensive line has obviously taken a beating, and a lot of it might be just because of the inexperience, right? Karras and Newhouse, they're not, and Skarnecki has said they're not working together as a unit, right? And that's what he wants his guys to do. But I just think on that white where he got tripped up by Cannon, he was running around all over the place. If you look at the film, he's just been off. I mean, I don't think his run blocking has been great. Obviously, he's a little bit banged up right now, so you don't know how much that's affecting him. But after coming off a year like last year and getting that big contract extension before last year and playing so well, you expected so much from him. He's one of the best guards in the league when he's playing to the best of his ability. But coming off last year, definitely disappointing year so far for him.
No, I agree. And, especially with the way Tooney's played, if you could get Mason playing like he was last year, he'd be really good up front. And so let's hope he can get there after the bye. My most disappointing is actually a twofer, a 2-for-1. I'm going to go with Antonio Brown / Josh Gordon. Both guys, we thought could come in and be big contributors this year, and we were very excited about the passing game, what it was going to look like. And, AB just can't keep his goddamn mouth shut. And, and unfortunately, Josh Gordon, I don't think just had it, it wasn't as good as he was. I think he's a good player still. He's not elite anymore, in my opinion. And so we'll see what happens out in Seattle. But I wasn't happy with the way he played. On broken screens. Yeah, look, he's still a physical specimen and everything else. He just doesn't have the speed, and he can't separate from coverage easily, I don't think, and really do the things that the Patriots want him to do. And again, Sanu, I think, does a lot of those things, and so that's why Sanu is here and not Gordon. And man, AB, just shut your freaking mouth, dude. Like, so frustrating. But anyways, so. All right, I don't want to harp on that. But listen, we have Ben Solak on the line. He is from Bleeding Green Nation. We're going to pull him up on here. We're going to talk a little Pats, Eagles. I know that's not until next week. I know it's the bye week, but we're doing it anyways. So, Ben, here we go. Let's see. Boom, there he is.
Look at that studio, man. Jeez.
Oh, please. Hardly. I just moved in a few months ago, so we're still setting things up over here as a stop-and-go process. What's going on, guys? How you been?
Looks good, man.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank God, man. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Of course. We some of you guys, listeners that have been out there for a while now may remember Ben from our show. He was on the draft preview for us, and works for the Draft Network, but also writes for Bleeding Green Nation, which is the SB Nation version at Philly. So we appreciate you guys coming on. And you guys, by the way, the numbers, come out every month. You guys are just killing it over there in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's all me. It has nothing to do with the EP, Michael Kist, who's my co-host. He might have you believe that, considering all the work he does, but really, I think it's the draw that I bring.
That's it.
So,
see?
Yeah, we're very proud of what we got over there.
That's good, man. And your number one town is the fact that you're so humble, and it's great, So. All right, so obviously we're both on our bye. The Patriots and Eagles both on the bye, heading into what should be a good matchup next week. I'll tell you what, Philly looked like a few weeks ago that this was going to be an absolute bloodbath coming in. Philly looked terrible. The Patriots were looking great. And, Philly's really turned it around the last few weeks. And, of course, the Patriots had that terrible game against Baltimore. Obviously, it's a week away, but just kind of early breakdown. What do you see here?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, but probably Eagles are still bad. Like beating up on a bad Bills offense and 30-mile-per-hour winds, and then beating up on a god-awful Bears offense at home. It's
right.
The Eagles executed better. Coaching staff made adjustments. They're definitely positive takeaways, but we saw resounding issues in the defensive secondary. We saw resounding issues at the wide receiver position. Those don't just go away in a week. And signing Jordan Matthews, getting Jalen Mills back from injury, Avonte Maddox back from injury, they help, but they don't. Again, we're kind of putting Band-Aids on bleeding wounds here a little bit. So for Philadelphia, it's the formula now with which they won is being a very heavy running team. They run the ball with a ton of success. They're able to put together these long drives, and then being a team that bends but doesn't break in terms of how play some good red zone defense.
We're familiar with that from
for sure, right? Yeah, so play some good red zone defense. Hopefully, get you into 3rd and long, and then kind of open the floodgates a little bit. So it's I wouldn't say I'm ever confident going into a game against the Patriots. I wasn't when the Eagles have been winning games and we're in the Super Bowl. It's New England, it's Belichick. The games the Eagles have won this year have been the games where, whether because of coaching obstinance, Green Bay, or because of offensive limitations, teams could not pass deep down the field to the outside. Yeah. That's not going to be the case against New England, even with a limited wide receiver core, even with Brady being older. I mean, Belichick's not stupid. There's a very clear weakness to this team, and he's not going to avoid it the way the Bears seem to, because they didn't trust their quarterback to get down the field the way the Bills couldn't because of the weather. The Eagles have won some situational spots, but against Belichick, you expect your weaknesses to be exploited, and the Eagles have some big ones.
So I want to get the elephant out of the room here, because as a Carson Wentz fantasy owner, I'm very disappointed in him this year.
Yeah.
So I want to get your take. I just want to get it out of the way. What have you seen from him this year? Because I expected, MVP type season coming off, obviously Foles, them going with Wentz, proving that he is the franchise.
Right.
And he's been off a little bit. Like you said, I know the limitations, the offense has been very, very inconsistent at times, but did they make the right decision? Is Wentz the guy?
Yeah, no, he's a good ball player, and he's playing good ball. I mean, the reality with Wentz, we like to talk about quarterbacks got to be able to elevate the players around them, right? There's only so much elevating you can get done. And eventually, at some point, you put the ball on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's hands on the goal line in a 4-point game, and he drops it. Well, you can't go hand and put it to you can't go hand to him yourself. Somebody's got to be able to make a catch.
Zero Wentz.
Yeah, Nelson Aguilar
on the Wentz wagon.
Right. Yeah. Well, the reality with Wentz is what the Foles starting in 2017 did for him. And there was the big Philly Voice article, which was all about, is he losing the locker room? And there's been 2 straight years now of anonymous quotes about, the offensive balance and who gets which targets. Carson, more than most quarterbacks in the league, deals with a lot of politics when he's on the field. And you can tell when he's pushing. He did it against Chicago on a couple of drives where he wants to get Nelson Aguilar involved. He wants to get him downfield targets. So he gives him a downfield target where he shouldn't. And it's pretty easy explanation. Carson's typically a pretty good post-snap processor, but there are times when he forces the football, and it's pretty frequently because this is my 3rd down guy. This is my deep ball guy. And I got to get Nelson Aguilar's confidence up. And, I've got to, get Alshon in these one-on-one situations, because we know Alshon doesn't like how little he gets targeted on 3rd downs. And so he's dealt with a lot of stuff. And the locker room loved Nick Foles because for whatever reason, they were able to pull off 3 wins with Nick Foles, and the most important 3 wins in franchise history, Right. And I always bring up the fact that halftime of that Falcons game, Keanu Neal jump kicked a football in midair that he should have intercepted, and it landed in Torrey Smith's hands. The Eagles got 3 points. They end up winning that game by 3. Keanu Neal makes that pick. We're not talking about this, there's little things that have huge impacts in football games. You build this whole Nick Foles storyline, and Carson's still recovering from that. It's very hard to be playing an MVP caliber season, go down, and have that entire season hamstrung by your backup winning the Super Bowl. It's really tough psychologically. So he deals with a lot on the field other than just going out there and quarterbacking. So you can tell that he's pushing. You can tell he's trying to fit narrative sometimes. At the end of the day, not a throw on the field he can't make. He's a fantastic escape artist who regularly makes plays with his legs. So he has all the talent in the world. He could use a healthy receiving core, and he could also use a 4-game stretch where nobody says anything about him, and he just gets to play good ball.
Welcome to Boston, man. You should listen to our media with Tom Brady after what he's accomplished, what they said.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say is that you look at, a situation with Jimmy G where, people, and even Jacoby Brissett now is playing well, in Indy, and people are like, we should have kept Brissett and, Jimmy G. And we're like, but you have Tom Brady. Like, what do you mean?
You can't fit them under the cap.
It's just, it's insane. And so, Brady can push it off because it's Brady and he has accomplished so much, and it's Tom Brady. But like for a guy like Carson Wentz, who even though he was the number 2 pick in the draft and has a ton of hype and was playing an MVP caliber season the year he went down, he just hasn't been proven enough. And so, it's one of those things where you just kind of look at it and say, hey, what are you going to do? It's frustrating.
Yeah, and he's going to be fine. He's not the problem with this team, is what it comes down to. After the Minnesota loss and the Dallas loss, there was a solid Philly media push.
Philly's going to rattle off like 5, sneak their way into the playoffs, and like blink, and they'll be in the divisional round in a tight game, going to the possibly going to the NFC Championship game.
Well, it's what we talk about. They got 2 games against the Giants, 1 game against the Redskins, 1 game against the Dolphins, still on the docket. So call it 4 wins. Assuming nothing messes around. Now you're at 9-4. All right. Well, you got home Seattle, home Dallas, home New England. Win one of the 3. Hopefully the Dallas one.
And you're 10-6.
You're in.
Yeah, 10-6. And so either Dallas drops a game or you beat Dallas and you're good. So Philly, who has not been playing well, has been dealing with excessive injury, has been dealing with locker room nonsense, not in a bad spot to win the division, which is a weird feeling. So it's a curious thing.
Right. No, it's a good point. It is a good point. So I think it's interesting. And I have to say with Wentz getting injured, right? I think that, that might have been the biggest thing that screwed the Patriots is Carson Wentz getting injured in 2017. There is not because of Carson Wentz, but the MVP curse is real. Okay.
Right.
The MVP of the NFL has not won the Super Bowl since 1999 with Kurt Warner. When Wentz went down, Brady became the MVP in 2017 because Wentz couldn't be the MVP because he didn't finish the season.
Right. Now, so, we like to call it Wentz's MVP season because we want to, but the reality is at the time of the Rams game, which if Carson had won that game, it would have helped. Brady was far and wide the favorite. Carson was the only horse in the race, but like Vegas odds, Brady was like minus 200. Wentz was like plus 1 something. You know what I mean? Like it was still Brady's award to lose. We just call it Carson's 2017 MVP season because he can't prove us wrong.
See, there you go. See, good point. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I do think, and listen, I know you talk about how the Eagles, their secondary stinks and defense isn't good or whatever, but you talk about the Bills and the Bears, 2 of the best defenses in the league, right? And you hang 31 on the Bills and you hang 22 on the Bears. And I think that, and regardless of what was going on, regardless of the ineptitude of the Bears offense and the Bills offense, I still think that's pretty impressive given the fact that you're playing two dominant defenses.
Yeah, and like I said, man, Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, and especially the offensive line. Jeff Stoutland's the offensive line coach and the running game coordinator here in Philly. He's been doing his darndest this year, and it's being delivered. Jordan Howard with 17 runs so far this year of 10-plus yards. Eagles have never had, under Doug Peterson, never had a guy with more than 20 of those. Howard's going to clear that pretty handily. Rookie Miles Sanders also playing great ball. Their offensive line, 5 strong, even with the rookie Andre Dillard stepping in for Jason Peters. They can do a ton of different things to you. So it's not like McVay, you're facing wide zone, and Shanahan, you run outside zone. Obviously, they build off that. They don't just run that. But Philadelphia runs one of the most variegated rushing attacks in the league. And they've got the athletes to really stress you out. So the formula there, if you're New England, is, well, I've got guys who can man cover like nobody's business. So I'm putting 1 on your guy to the outside, 1 on the other guy to the outside. I get to load the box against you now. And that's the fear for Philadelphia. You got to be able to run these concepts here against 7-man boxes, 8-man boxes, and even 9-man boxes when Philadelphia elects to go 2 tight ends, which no team does it more so in the league, run 12 personnel in Philadelphia 35% of the time. And so, if you're giving us, Stephon Gilmore over here and JC Jackson over here and McCourty over there, and we've got to try to figure out how to win those isolation routes. That's advantage New England because we don't have a receiver who can do it. Right. And then the question for Philadelphia is if you can't win those matchups, are you going to be able to run the ball so successfully against such heavy boxes to put up a ton of points? Patriots defense really good. We ain't got Lamar and 3 starting running backs back there. We don't have that caliber of a player. So it's it'll be interesting to see if the Eagles are able to move the ball on the ground. It's really going to be a sublime performance from Stoutland from that offensive line.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you kind of touched upon it a little bit more, but I guess going a little bit more depth with New England secondary being so good, and like you said, struggling with the receiving core. I think New England secondary definitely wins that matchup. With the New England kind of struggled a little bit this past week, obviously with the rushing attack. I mean, it's hard to slow that down if you got Lamar, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards just pounding the ball down your throat. What's Philly's game plan kind of going into this game? Because looking at this game before the season, me and Pat talked about it. This was number 1 on mine just because of the rematch. And I think it's an intriguing matchup for New England. I think that it's a tough atmosphere. It's a building where they can struggle, and the Eagles can kind of mismatch a little bit and make things difficult for New England.
Yeah, so if you're going to run a successful passing game in Philly, it's going to be through your tight ends and your backs. Miles Sanders is probably the best receiver on this team, at least the most explosive one, since Deshaun Jackson went down with injury. And then Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are a nightmare. You
love Goddard, man. I wish he was in New England so bad.
Yeah, I was happy when they picked him. He's been a lot of fun. And the thing is, like, you can only get so many targets to your tight end too, especially when he's the better blocker of the group. But they still, they find him in the red zone a fair bit. Zach Ertz had a nice red zone touchdown as well. These are big bodies. They're tough to deal with. So, so you don't typically find athletes of this size with this quickness and to be as good of route runners as Ertz and Goddard are. So the question is, how is New England going to match these players and the variety of alignments that they play in, right? So you have Ertz and Goddard flexed out wide. You have them in the slot. You have them in line. Who is going to be following them around the field? Safety, you're going to give them a nickel corner. You're going to give them a linebacker. So the Eagles got to figure out, all right, when we put tight ends here, how are they going to get matched? And then how can we get them open? Because like I said, nobody's winning consistently against Stephon Gilmore on this team. It's not happening, right? So it's going to be through tight end. And then the screen game, the flat game, and the wheel game from the running backs has been a huge part of the Philadelphia offense. They also involve their tight ends in the screen game as targets, but the running backs, that's where they get a lot of their targets. Eagles target running backs more than most teams in the league do. And that's a situation where you get a ton of misdirection, you get a ton of flow one way, action another way. It's going to test the Patriots' defensive discipline. Now, Bill Belichick defenses tend to be disciplined. This defense has been very disciplined all year. But obviously, you get 2 weeks now to sit on that Baltimore tape where Greg Roman's throwing the kitchen sink at you. Linemen going hither and thither, motion with tight ends, multi-back sets. So Philadelphia is going to do a lot in the backfield to try to stretch you out horizontally. Then they're going to try to win those space matchups. This team loves to hit tight windows in the flats, in the curls, in the hitch routes, quick out, so on and so forth. So that's that passing game plan that you're going to want to try to generate at least some sort of balance on offense with. But, if Wentz attempts more than 2 passes, 15-plus yards down the field, I'll be shocked.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's an interesting discussion. So, all right, we have 2 very important questions. Number 1, hold on. I'm going to see if this works. All right,
oh, that's cool.
Oh, look at that. So, number 1, it's super important question. It's covering your face. It's so important. Can Aguilar catch babies?
Is this a user submitted question?
It is.
Yes,
this is handy dandy, man. That's awesome. So for those of you who don't know, this is in reference to a young man in Philadelphia who, following the loss to Atlanta, which Nelson Aguilar dropped a game-winning touchdown, this man was responding to a fire in the neighborhood. He was a friendly neighbor helping out.
I saw this.
Yeah, and they were evacuating children from the building, and he received them and handed them off successfully. And then in an interview after with the news station, he said they were throwing babies out the window and I was catching them. And then he turned to the camera and he said, unlike Aguilar and all of his mishaps, and it was very funny. Aguilar not only cannot catch this year, which has been a recurring issue, what has been his saving grace, route running, has diminished. Long speed is inevident, and they desperately need that deep threat with the lack of Deshaun Jackson. He's sorely lacking for physicality down the field. He attempts to draw pass interference with every single target. He simply is no longer interested in finding and addressing the football, and I don't blame him because he's not very successful at that. So he's just trying to draw flags. The fact that he still gets starting reps when the Eagles have a second-round rookie receiver who they don't play is frankly galling and quite surprising from the coaching staff.
Yeah. No, it's great. That's, agreed. So, all right, one more, and this is an actual one. So let's see if we can cover your face again. Boom. Do you think Deshaun Jackson will play another snap with the Eagles?
Yeah, he's not cuttable on his contract next year. And the reality is that, Deshaun's been missing a few games for the past few seasons. Now, he was doing that under other medical staffs, which, Washington's medical staff is not anything to write home about. But Philadelphia's medical staff Philadelphia's medical staff's been a big issue for them in the last 2 years. They fired their entire medical staff after the Super Bowl win, brought in a new group, and they've been bad. Soft tissue injuries have been a huge issue for them, none more so than Jackson, who at the time of his initial abdominal tear was recommended to get surgery. They could not get Jackson on board with surgery. He ends up thinking what's going to be a 3-week rehab became a 6-week rehab. In the first game he comes back, he worsens the tear, and now he's got to get surgery and he's out for the season. This is the stuff you need to be able to handle as a medical staff. They lost unnecessary games of Jackson, who could have been an IR designated to return candidate, been back for the backstretch of this regular season, potentially for the playoffs, if they had correctly gotten him under the knife as they needed to when he initially got injured. So you know, Jalen Mills was a similar situation. Sidney Jones has never been able to get healthy. Corey Clement, Darren Sproles, they're continually getting injuries, not to mention the whole Carson Wentz bonanza last year. So the medical
at least it's not as bad as the Jets or Washington, as you said.
Right. And that's the thing, is like the Eagles have the advantage of not playing on FedEx Field, which is huge. But they were the second most unlucky team last year in terms of injuries and games lost, and they're probably going to be very low again this year as well. Deshaun, a large part of that, but he'll be back on the team for sure in 2020. He's not cuttable until after that season.
Well, there you go. All right. So you haven't seen the last of Deshaun Jackson then in an Eagles uniform.
D-Jax.
All right. So I think it's all we got, man. I think it's all we got for you. Before you leave, though, you got to plug yourself a little bit, plug your show, whatever you got going on over there. I know you got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's it's at Benjamin Solak. Solak is Solak on Twitter. And Bleeding Green and BGN Radio are the spots for Eagles written and audio coverage. And we do, next week we'll do our 2 previews: Eagles offense against Patriots defense, Patriots offense against Eagles defense, and that's where we give our X's and O's perspective. That's me and my co-host Michael Kist, and those are fun shows. They're from the Eagles perspective, but they're from a good time, so we like what we do there. And then also Draft Network is the spot for all the draft work. I got the hat on today, and that may not be something you're worried about right now, but when it comes down the road, at Draft Network LLC is the Twitter handle. Shoot us a follow. We get all the draft coverage for you. Those are my spots.
I freaking love Draft Network. You guys
have a good time, man.
Oh my Lord. You guys
I like the Joe Burrow pick recently in your mock draft, the number 1.
Yeah, number 1 overall. I mean, we got a good game coming up on Saturday, brother. Battle for QB1. It's gonna be a blast.
So it should be fun. All right. Well, thank you, and thank you guys for watching / listening. If you're listening to the podcast on Friday, we appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
No problem. Let's hit the button. There we go.